Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where the orchard of wisdom shows are at your fingertips. It ignites your soul, your heart, your spirit, your mind, and your body with illumination from people who have made the journey before you. They're here now to help you on your journey, on your path of self-discovery. We are funded by you, the audience, and the people we interview. If you wish to support us, please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com and press on our Fund Action button. Anything is appreciated. We'd like you to sit back and enjoy the shows. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Building Your Business right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Torrey, and my guest is Rob Dubin. He says that he's retired. Well, not really, because really he's out there helping businesses and people and entrepreneurs in finding their recipe for happiness. What is that recipe for happiness? Well, he transforms discontented workers into champions who reap engaging careers and fulfilling lives. A Great Resignation is challenging HR departments and affecting the bottom lines. Yet even the most forward-thinking companies cannot solve the problem of employee happiness on their own. The real solution is teaching employees the actual recipe for happiness. Yes, there's a recipe for happiness, and when your staff learns it, they will be far more engaged at work and more fulfilled at home, and they will stay on the job. Well, he was an award-winning filmmaker who owned his own company, as well as paid to travel the world and camera in hand, doing work for numerous Fortune 500 companies. A near-death survival experience made international news and elected him called for President of the United States. This prompted a re-examination of life, and 2 years later, at the age of 42, he and his wife sold the home and moved on board a 40-foot sailboat and went sailing for 17 years. Sounds fantastic. The experiences there alone I want to dive into with him. But he studied human happiness and fulfillment with both billionaires, barefoot villages in 100 countries, and he teaches people a recipe for happiness. For individuals, this translates to more fulfilling careers, a happier home. More for corporations, it stems from resignations and transforms workplace, resulting in increase in bottom lines. Folks, if we aren't happy in our own lives, there is nothing that we do in our life, in a relationship, in work, in anything, that is going to make us happy. Happiness is an inside job. And when we are happy, we're going to bring that happy to everything that we do. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you so much for having me.
17 years sailing around the world. That is so exciting. And the things that you must have seen along the line. And really what you do see along there, it doesn't matter whether it's the Fortune 500 company or whether it's, Ma and Joe on the corner or, somebody in the street selling from a trolley. It really is the people that are truly happy are the ones that really find the success.
Absolutely. We'd been involved in the world of sailing for a long time. Excuse me. We'd been involved in the world of sailing for a long time before we left. And so we were involved with the America's Cup and the billionaires and the hundreds of millionaires that are involved in that sport. And some of them were happy and some were unhappy. And then we took off sailing, and we were sharing our lives with, barefoot villagers that lived in dirt floor, grass shacks, and some of them were happy and some were unhappy. And so clearly it was not this American ideal we have of, you put your nose to the grindstone and you work, and somewhere along the way you can afford the new car and the picket fence, and then happiness happens. So we realized that that was not how it occurs. And I think I know your show is about self-discovery and the accumulation of wisdom. And when there are just two people on a sailboat together, and you're crossing an ocean, one of you needs to be on watch all the time, and the other one sleeps. And so these watches, you spend 12 hours a day on watch, looking around at the ocean, and sometimes it's puffy white clouds and stars overhead at night, and other times it's a raging maelstrom. But these hours and hours of watches add up to 10, 20,000 hours over time, and it's time to meditate and think about what you're learning. And I think that for my experience, that's where some wisdom crept in, is in these hours and hours of examination and meditation, of observing the world and the people that we were seeing in it.
Time to reflect, right?
Absolutely.
You see these things and it enters your mind, but if you don't give time to reflect what you're seeing, how do you understand what you're seeing?
Exactly. So for us, that's where the knowledge or the wisdom or the observing the patterns that made people happy and fulfilled versus unhappy and unfulfilled, that's where we started to make those distinctions, was because of that time to reflect, for sure.
I mean, I laughed when you talked about the rich and reach the top. I mean, I don't know how many people I've interviewed that reach the top, the dream, the big house, the big car, the big this, and realize they were a slave to the job to maintain this so-called illusional happiness, and realize how miserable they were. Or, cosmic 2x4 came along, made them sick, or they lost everything, or something happened for them to bottom out. And in the rebuilding, they decided to rebuild something that really meant something to them, that really kind of ignited a purpose within them. And they realized that the enrichment and abundance of life really didn't have much to do with money. It was to do with what you do in life, how happy you're making other people because of your happiness that comes from within.
Absolutely. And I think we are in a renaissance period right now. And I know in the pandemic, it's hard to see beyond that. But I believe that the silver lining in the cloud of the pandemic is that suddenly millions and millions of people around the world have started asking themselves those existential questions. Am I happy? If not, why? What direction should my life be going? How can I make myself happier? And if we had just continued the way we were, it was a very small percentage of the population that was asking themselves that question. Yeah. And now millions and millions more are doing that. And I think that's a wonderful thing, because I think the first step to finding happiness for a lot of people is looking for it, is realizing you're not there, and there maybe are things you could be doing to get there. And once you start looking for solutions, you're likely to find them.
The awareness that you're not happy, and then for people, especially who are kind of quote made it, well, I'm making this kind of money, I have this, I have that, why am I not happy? Because that awareness that all of that work, all of that time, all of that kind of slaving themselves to get to that position, and then to realize you're not happy, is kind of rather a shock for a lot of people, right? And it's like that willing to aware it's not working for you and it's time to change. Sometimes it comes with the old cosmic 2x4, which is a blessing, and sometimes it has to come by your choice. And for some people, it's a hard choice, isn't it? Because, well, I've got all of this, walking away from this or redirecting out. What will people think?
Well, one of the, you bring up so many different ideas in that little paragraph you just said, but one of the things that we see is, what will people think? I have a framework that I teach in how to be happy. And that's one of the core principles, is you have to free yourself from that idea. And of course, I was a filmmaker, and my father was a doctor, and my parents were all, their friends were all professional people, and they wanted me to be a lawyer. And I said, no, I'm going to film school, which wasn't a real career at that point.
Oh, yes, I remember.
And then when I was 42 and I had this successful business, I said, I'm retiring and we're going to get on a sailboat and go sailing. Needless to say, that was not an idea that anybody thought was a good idea. I mean, my friends, my parents, my family, what do you mean you're in the peak of your career and you're going to walk away from it? So all of those things that have led to my happiness were only on the other side of people's opinions.
Right.
And if I had been swayed by people's opinions, I wouldn't have done them. And I have most of the observations I've made about happiness came to me while we were sailing, But the first one actually came when I was in fourth grade. You can see me, and you see I'm bald. Your viewers can't see that, but I'm totally bald, which is not a big deal because I'm in my 60s. But what you wouldn't know is that I started going bald when I was in kindergarten.
Mm.
And I got teased
Oh,
unmercifully
yeah.
on the playground, and we didn't have any of those anti-bullying campaigns
Right.
then like we do
And
now.
bald wasn't sexy either at that
Bald was
time
not
period.
sexy. There were nobody out there being a cool bald guy for
Right.
for a mentor.
Kojak, yeah, whatever his name. No, Travis. What was his name? The
Uh, yeah,
the
I know who.
lollipop. The
Kelly
lollipop kid.
Savalas.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
But when I was in fourth grade, these two sixth graders were picking on me, and I finally kind of lost it, and I got this, heard this roaring in my ears, and I got tunnel vision, and I ran at these two sixth graders who were both much bigger than me. I had my little 10-year-old fist swinging as hard as I could. And I don't remember what happened for the next couple minutes, but when the playground monitor, the gym teacher, picked me up off of these kids, both of them were on the ground and they both had bloody nose, and I'd beat them both up, and I was completely fine. And that was interesting because I got a lot of, I was everybody's hero for a day or two
Right.
because nobody liked the school bullies anyway. But then somebody said something to me, and I don't remember if it was my parents or a teacher or maybe another student that was just my age, 10 years old. But somebody said to me, "You don't even like those kids. Why do you care what they think of you?"
Yes.
And so from that moment on in fourth grade, I realized that all my sense of self-worth comes from inside. It comes from
Mm.
me. What other people think of me is their business. It's none of my business.
Yeah.
And I don't look for my approval from other people. And that lesson that I learned at 10 years old has been one of the most important lessons I've learned in my entire life, because it's really made possible so many of the other things I've done in my life.
That is one of the lessons that most people have to go through a lifetime to discover. I was in my 50s before I finally realized that I'm enough in my own life. And you could take me or leave me, I'm not going to be offended, and I'm not bending myself into a pretzel anymore to fit your illusion of me, right?
Absolutely. There was actually a study done, believe it or not, and it said the average age when people figure that out and come to that realization that you just
Mm.
said so eloquently, that the average age is 46 years old before
Yes,
people realize they are enough, this is how they are going to be, and people are going to accept them or not. And
exactly.
and I think, when obviously a big part of all of our lives is our relationships with everyone around us, but certainly if you have a significant other. And my feeling is that when you bring an entirely whole you that you know is enough to the relationship, that's really the critical element to finding another entirely whole
Ah,
human being. And my wife she's my best friend. We've been married 40 years now.
wonderful.
And that's the basis of our relationship, is that deep reservoir that we each have of who we are.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because in every pretty show that I do, somewhere along the line, we're talking about relationships. And relationships aren't just between loved ones, they're relationships with our families, with our colleagues, with ourselves, right? And so many people are looking for that approval from someone else, that connection, that camaraderie. And or looking for a loved one to complete them. No, you want somebody that complements you, not completes you, right? And when we step up into that higher vibration of self-love, not egotistical, not narcissism, but self-love, I love who I am, for why I am, and what I'm here to do, then that vibration, that frequency is met by somebody else on that same frequency. And now you can complement each other because you're not looking to complete each other. You can build together something beautiful, but it's you, it's her, and then it's the us.
Absolutely, and that's exactly how we see it, as complementing each other. Once we get out of high school, we should not care if we're the most popular person
Mm,
in school anymore. And I tell people that when they start to live as their authentic self, they probably won't be the most popular person and have all the friends in the world, but they'll have all the friends they need. And your friends will appreciate you so much more if you're living your authentic self every day and they know who you are and you come to the table every day with that authentic person that you are. And the only thing you need is just what you said, is you need your own values. And if you have your own values figured out, that becomes the compass of who you are, and you bring that authenticity to every relationship, and every relationship is much better for that.
100%. And the thing about it too is that it's not about the numbers. You know, we've been taught numbers game, business, all about numbers, social media, numbers. No, it isn't. It's about quality, right? I'd rather have the few genuine than the shallow masses, right?
Exactly. That's why I said once you get out of high school, you really shouldn't care if you're the most popular kid in school anymore. You know, you
Right.
should want friends that their life complements your lives, and in the same way that you described the you and your significant other creating something that's greater than the two halves,
Yeah.
all your relationships can do that if you're living an authentic life.
Yeah. And also I think it's important to understand that all of your relationships that you're going to have are going to be different. They're like different chapters in your book. I have a bestie. I love her. She's there every time something goes wrong in my life, you know, and she's one of the best friends you could ever have. She's a cheerleader of what I do. She's even ordered audio to show for me, but she's doesn't still quite get what I do, you know, kind of quite this, but she celebrates it anyway. And that's okay. It's not about each person getting you on this level or that level. It's that do they celebrate the essence of you? And it's what does that essence of you mean to them? It's not about dictating what it should mean to them. It's about allowing your essence to fulfill them in a way that there is a beautiful connection.
Absolutely. And you have to be that authentic self
Mm.
to make any of those things happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of the, you know, thing that goes wrong in business is, especially as a, you know, the social media side, which let's face it, any business you do today, you've got to have a social media side of it, is this need for popularity or competition. I have two words I hate: comparison and competition. You know, leave the competition for sports, all right, or a friendly game, but it shouldn't be the competition in life, because who are you really competing against? And comparison is going to kill you. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be looking at what somebody else is doing. Are you doing the same? Can you do it in a different way? Is your demographics different? That's not what I'm talking about. But that comparison of, I want to be like that person, I've got to be like that person to be important, that is a killer, isn't it?
Very much so. You know, and I went through quite a transformation over the course of my life because I started my own film production company, was in my 20s, and the film business was extremely competitive. And we were in a fairly small market in Denver, and the jobs came from the ad agencies,
Mm-hmm.
and every job was generally bid to two or three companies. And so you had this mentality of competition. I had to
Mm,
do a better bid, a better job
yeah.
than the other two people that were bidding on it. And so that idea of competition and that kind of zero sum game
Mm,
became part of my mentality. And so it was either I was going to win the job or you were going to win the job,
yeah.
but not both of us.
Right.
And I don't know how I could have done it differently in that business,
Yeah.
but I was very glad when I stopped doing that and I got on my sailboat and I stopped seeing the world as a zero
Mhm.
sum game.
Yeah.
And now I very much see, you know, even in the field I'm in now as a motivational speaker, the other motivational speakers, that even the ones that talk about the same thing I do, they're my
Mhm.
biggest cheerleaders.
Right,
And
exactly.
and we
Collaboration, cohesiveness.
absolutely, we
Yes.
collaborate all the time
Yes.
on ideas, and we're even though we're doing the same thing, going after the same market, it's not a zero sum game. And to use a sailing analogy, a rising tide really does lift all boats.
Right.
And
I 100% agree with that. I get the same thing with podcasts, you know, like you interview other podcasters. Yes, all got our own flavor, right? But
absolutely,
you know, we're all the buffet of knowledge out there, and you're going to be attracted to the podcast that really resonates with you, that speaks to you, that really you kind of lets you come away with something. And some people, they only want the 10-minute ones. And I'm not. I'm an hour plus because I'm all about the unraveling and going deeper. So I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm somebody's strong cup of coffee. And it's don't you there's this one size fits all, I think, is so detrimental to everyone because we are how many trillions of people in this world, and we've all got different perspectives, different needs, different ones, different ways of listening and learning. And there is enough room for everybody to have their own audience.
Absolutely. And I find that mindset, that concept of that mindset, really important in all
Mm,
aspects of life. Tony Robbins was a big mentor of mine. I spent lots and lots of time with him back in the 90s and worked with him and did all of his different seminars. And one of the seminars was about financial mastery. And certainly your mindset about
mm,
money is one of the key parts of having money. I mean, if you have a scarcity mindset, you will not be able to, generate financial security for yourself. And for many, many years in business, I wanted to make creative films, and as long as they made enough to pay the crew and keep the lights on,
right.
and I could do the next creative job, I was very happy. But then at some point, I decided I wanted a better financial
Mm,
structure, more financial security for myself. And we basically went from having a very small nest egg, like $50,000, and 3 years later, we retired completely, and I have never been had to go back to work since then, and that was
mm,
25 years ago.
wow.
But it was started with the mindset, and then it gets to the strategies, and I think everything is that way, really.
Yeah, I know that everything is vibrational. Everything is that resonance of that. And I consider myself a very enriched and abundant person. But somehow the mindset hasn't gone over to the dollars because people automatically assume I'm rich. So it's like I'm still trying to find that financial frequency that goes out there. And it's got nothing against being rich. It's that I kind of already feel it
Well,
in.
that is actually the first step to being wealthy is realizing what you already have and that recognizing that. And like I say, it's the mindset and then it's strategies to
Yeah,
save more, earn more, and then invest more. I
right.
actually have a PDF on my website. If people are interested, they can go to the website and download a PDF that explains that of how we did what we did.
Hmm. And then sometimes in any form of business, there is the parts that you don't want to do in order to do the parts that you do want to do. And that's just the nature of business and life, right? And we've all got that. But I think the common denominator in that is where's the ethics, right? Whatever you're not wanting to do is that there's always a boundary of your ethics. There's always your own self-dignity, your integrity, and anything that's going to cost that is going to cost you your happiness. So you've got to know your boundary, haven't you?
Without a doubt. For me, I guess the ethics are they're such a hard and fast thing. I just never would cry. It never
Mm,
got to the point where I was considering doing something that I would have
right.
thought unethical. But in terms of the other parts of your business, I mean, I think it gets to what you said earlier about relationships.
Hmm.
It's you're looking for somebody that doesn't complete you, but that complements you.
Yes.
And I would say one of my successes in business was I recognized my weaknesses.
Mm,
Most of us are really good at seeing the things we're good at,
yeah.
and it's not so easy to see the things that we're not good at.
Hmm.
Uh, and I recognized right off what I wasn't good at. Actually, my wife was my partner in business, and she complimented me in those ways too.
Hmm.
But I was pretty quick to hire people that had skills that I didn't.
Right.
Uh, I think it's important to know how to do every job, or at least know what goes into the job,
Yes.
so you can supervise it, so you can hire the right people. But I think the quicker you unload your stuff from
Mm,
stuff that drains your energy, and especially in the business, when the film business was different, I might have 50 people on a set when we were
mm,
filming. We had maybe 6 or 8 people full time in the office, and now I'm a solopreneur doing my speaking business. But I'm very quick to reach out to Fiverr or
Yeah.
or VAs, things like that, to supplement the things that I don't want to do, because I think the energy level you bring to things is really important. And if you, I can pretty honestly say, never in my life have I woken up and said, I don't want to go to the office, or I don't want to go to work today.
Right.
I can't recall ever having thought that. But it's because the things that I don't want to do, I offload very
Right.
quickly so I can keep my energy for the creative side that, turns me on.
Exactly. And, I wear all the hats in this right now, and I've learned to wear them. And some of them probably could be done better by other people. And one day I hope to be able to hand that off. And there's certainly a couple of hats I'd love to hand off. But, the thing is, in any form of business, it takes time to build up. It takes time to do it. And like my son has a restaurant, and I told him before he opened, it's going to be like having twins. And then I saw him a few months later and he lied. He said it's having triplets. And now he says it's like having quads, especially through COVID, right? Because he's managed to stay afloat through COVID and navigate. Plus, he snapped his Achilles as well during the time thing as well. And the thing is this learning to pivot, learning to delegate. Those are two things that are going to keep you survival, right?
Absolutely. And it's certainly a big part of it is seeing opportunity where other people maybe don't see opportunity.
Yeah.
And that for me was a part of my success. Uh, I think there are two elements. Certainly, you can shorten your learning curve by seeing what other successful people are doing
Yeah.
and mirroring that, or taking advantage of their expertise, but also look for opportunities that other people don't see. A number of years ago, while we were sailing around the world, our boat was in Thailand, and I'm a pilot. I fly small planes, and I saw this new design for what I fly as called a gyroplane. It looks like a little miniature
Mm.
helicopter. And at the time, the FAA had changed some regulations that allowed importation of European aircraft. And there were a bunch of people in the US that were in the business of this, selling these kind of things. And they didn't see this opportunity, this window of opportunity in the changing of this FAA regulation. And I wasn't even in the business, but I saw an opportunity there. And I saw this product from Europe that was just coming on the market that I thought was a breakthrough technology. So we left our boat in Thailand, and this window of opportunity was going to close in 8 months. The FAA
Mm.
regulation was going to change in 8 months from then, so the window would close. So I left my boat in Thailand. We came back to the United States. I made a deal with this company in Poland to import their aircraft, and the competitors that were in the market sold maybe 2 or 3 aircraft a year. And I sold 14 aircraft in 5 months. And I generated over $1 million in revenue in 5 months with myself as the only employee. And then the window of opportunity closed. And I closed the business and I went back to my sailboat and we continued sailing around the world. And it was an opportunity that everybody was aware of. They were more in the industry than I was, and yet I
Right.
had seen an opportunity they didn't see. So that was for me I'm a sort of a serial entrepreneur, and
Hmm.
that was just a little short business I ran for less than a year, and it did $1 million in sales.
Right. And the thing is, I'm a possibility seer. I see what is possible. It doesn't mean I'm the builder, or even the blueprinter, but I can tell you, from who will come, why they will come, what will attract them. And this is how I see it. Now, it's talking to the people who can blueprint it and build it. And the thing is, when you see something, I invested in a technology that I had zero understanding of. The thing is, I didn't need to understand how the technology worked. I just needed to understand the impact that it would have. Now, unfortunately, we got caught with 2008 and financing and greedy partners and everything else. So, a totally different story. That set me on this path 10 years ago. So, obviously, was meant to be. But it was very, very interesting in that world of how many people that were so protective of their ego or their position or their illusion, that they were actually missing something that was so utterly in their face. And I found it, very, very insightful.
Absolutely. I'm going to go off on a little tangent if I could, because what you said about that business that didn't work sent you to what you're doing now. And one of the key things I teach in the courses I teach about how to be happy is reinventing your story.
Mm-hmm.
And you obviously have taken that painful experience and you've reinvented the story that it brought you to where you are now.
Yeah.
And that's such a key for so many people. Uh, I'll give you a little bit of an analogy. When we sold our home, our 2,800 square foot home, and moved aboard a 300 square foot sailboat, we had to get rid of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of room on a sailboat. You can only bring with you things that are going to help you sail better or be safer on the water or help you, in your new life on the boat. And so we had to get rid of all this stuff. And that's a perfect analogy for life because we're all carrying so much baggage that happened yesterday that's not going to help us get to where we're going to go tomorrow.
Right.
If your life is going to be sailing off into the future and this old story is not going to help you,
it's going to sink you.
Get rid, exactly. It's going to sink the boat. So the thing you have to do is throw it off the boat, throw
Mm-hmm.
it overboard, let it sink in the ocean. And so one of the things I teach is how to rewrite your story. And I go through an exercise with people where they figure out a painful experience that they're still telling the negative story of and how to rewrite it. If we've all burned our hand on a stove sometime in our life.
Yes.
And what if the message you took from that was, well, I should never have hot food again?
Yes.
But how many people do that? We get our hearts broken in a relationship,
I'll
and
never love again. Yes.
exactly, we enter the next relationship halfway out with our feet halfway out the door,
Yes.
and so we have to reinvent those painful stories and turn them either, if you can, turn it into something positive, like you have with what you do now, or at minimum, turn it into a lesson that you learned that will help you in the future, and so you can go forward without dragging that pain with you.
Right. The word failure gets thrown around a great deal. And the way I look at failure is when you fall down and choose not to get back up. Right. But if you keep trying, and you keep landing on your ass but you keep getting back up, that's just a lesson learned. Right. That's just knowledge gathered. Right. And when this opportunity was given to me of somebody from an article I wrote, which actually was about depression, which I was in after losing everything, because I literally ended up in a van. Right. And it was like, what am I going to do now? And I wrote this article. And when I get that way, I need to get out there and help people because that's what keeps me alive. And somebody read this and looked at that particular site I had at the time and said, I think you should come on my network and do have your own podcast. And I go, what's a podcast? All right. And I had no idea. And then it's like, and it's live, and where do I get the people? What an incredible training ground it was for me. 13 months of everything that could go wrong. That went wrong. And then I started my own. And even with that, I wasn't savvy of really what I was meant to do because in me starting my own network altogether. But I learned as I went. And I think one of the things I feel blessed about with me is that I'm always willing to try something new. I don't know what I'm capable of doing until I give it a try.
Absolutely. You must be a very happy person because you're hitting all of the buzz things that I teach about how to be happy. You mentioned that when things were tough, you realized you needed to go out and help other people.
Yeah, I have to. Yeah.
That's so, contribution is such an important part of being happy. And I once went through something very much like you described. I was part of this business and somebody else dropped the ball and I was their representative and all this stuff crashed down on me and it was kind of woe is me and I was being made out to be the bad guy. I actually was sort of a whistleblower saying these guys are bad. They ended up going to jail, but that was months down the road.
Right.
For a long time it all fell on my head.
Right.
And I had just a glimmer of insight and I turned to my wife And instead of saying, woe is me, I said, we need to go do something for somebody else. And this was right after Katrina. And we went to Louisiana and we built homes for Habitat for Humanity for a
Yay.
little
Good for
while.
you. Good for you.
And but it was just literally a moment of insight that
Yes.
made me say, I can't keep thinking about myself. Let me do something for somebody else. And
Yes.
as soon as I did that, I got out of the funk I was in, and
Ah,
then months later, the truth came out, and I was sort of exonerated.
right.
But it was
But you
that
know, that gift that you gave to other people ended up being a bigger gift to you. And I'm firm believer that we're here to be contributors and of service to each other. All right. And we're
absolutely,
all given our own instrument, we're all given our own gift, and that is the way that we participate. That is the way we contribute. But in the giving is where there is the receiving.
absolutely. I mean, that's why I do what I do now. I'm 68 years old. I didn't need to start a new business to go speaking to corporations, and I didn't need it financially. I was loving my retirement. I ski every day in the winter and mountain bike every day in the summer, but I definitely felt a need to be giving back more than I
Yes.
was,
Yes.
and
I'm just a
I'm
little
getting
bit
way more out of it
right.
than I'm putting in for sure.
I'm 67, so I've been doing this almost 10 years now, and I hope to do it until I can't see, hear, or think anymore. All right. And whoever's going to listen to an old broad, forever long. The oldest person I have was 89, turning 90, who just started her own TV show. So, there's always an audience, right? And one of the things I like to do is bridge the gaps between the elders and the young people, and understanding how of coming together and what abundance of wisdom can be held with the enthusiasm and the insight of the possibilities, along with the beautiful wisdom and knowledge of those that have gone before. And you merge those two together, and it's absolutely sensational, right?
Absolutely, I completely agree with you.
Have an elder in your business, folks, because no, they didn't do things the way you're doing. And don't get frustrated with them if they don't get the technology straight away. Understand this: you wouldn't have this technology if their generation hadn't been around before. So show some appreciation, but tap into the wisdom of their essence, of their ethics, of their ability to read people, of just of that quiet, deep wisdom that's there, because that is your foundation on which to build from.
Yeah, as a film director, which is what I did for my actual working career, you very much get into that mold because on the set you have everybody who has a special expertise and you can learn from everybody there. So you
Yes.
have a hair and makeup person, you have a grip and a gaffer and an assistant cameraman and a script supervisor and all these people that have individual little things that you can learn from them. And I was known on my sets to have a very open set where anybody could come to me with a
Mm.
suggestion and I guaranteed I would listen to it. I may or may not adopt it, but it could be the lowliest person on the crew that might have
Mhm.
only been in the business for a week and might come and say, "Hey, what about this idea? Or what if we did this way?" I always listened, and I think that's where that's a beautiful thing to be able to incorporate that. And that's one of the wonderful things about filmmaking is
Mm.
that you take the creative best of a large group of people, all with a common goal in mind. Sometimes in other jobs you don't see that same
Mm.
result if you work for a corporation
Yes.
and you're isolated from the big picture.
Yes.
You do your cog of the wheel, but it really helps if you can get an appreciation for everybody driving in the same direction towards a common
Yeah.
goal.
I call it the ivory tower syndrome, where all of those are up in the top and they're completely oblivious to the people that have got them there. And if you don't pay attention to your foundation, to the people there, it's going to crumble and you're going to
Abs-
crash and fall. But, I also believe that each one of us is, as a metaphor, we're an instrument to be discovered. And once we discover our instrument, we learn how to play it. And then we seek out the orchestra in which to play it in. And then together we explore how we can come together in harmony and what we can create out as a symphony that invites others. But some people are gifted with 2 or 3 instruments in their life. Some people may be only one. But the whole thing is learn to play it well. You might be in a dozen orchestras in your life, or you might just be in one, but that is your contribution. That is your gift. And for some people, yes, they have the ability to be multitaskers. Others, that is the gift. If you're a neurosurgeon, I don't want you to be an orthopedic person. I want you to specialize on being a neurosurgeon. So it's knowing what your gift is, willing to explore who you are, why you are, what when you really love what you do, the possibilities of what that is become so broad because you begin to see things in a way from that passion, from that love, that you don't see if it's just from a mindless job type of point of view.
Right. A lot of people have trouble identifying that what instrument do I play kind of concept. I realized how lucky I was when I was 18 years old. I knew I wanted to go into photography and filmmaking. All my friends were applying to liberal arts colleges and they probably changed their major 3 or 4 times. And I realized totally how lucky I was that I knew what I wanted to do. But that was unusual because most people don't know what they want to do. And one of the things I talk with college age students about how to find your passion, and I give them a kind of a 3-step process to help figure that out. Because like you say, it does make such a difference in your life if you are doing it from a point of passion. And the steps I share with people are to, number one, make a list of all the things that you're good at, that you enjoy doing, that, time slips away when you do it.
Yeah.
You would do it for no money. You do it for yourself. Your friends maybe recognize you're good at it and they ask for your help in those things. So make a list of those things. That's not the first list. And then look at that list and see which of those things you can do that will solve a problem for somebody. And then the third step is, will they pay you to solve that problem? So for instance, maybe you love to write poetry. Now on the surface of it, being a poet is probably not a profession that's going to pay you very much money or even any money. But if you look at it a different way, I think you would find that if you think, who can I solve a problem for as a poet? Well, musicians, songwriters, big name stars, they don't write all their own music. They need songwriters to write their songs. And so if you can write songs for Taylor Swift or whoever it is and use your poetry to write a song, you're solving a problem for Taylor Swift or whoever that musician is. Will they pay you for it? Yes, they will pay you very well for doing that. So there's an idea of how you can take something as impractical as writing poetry and create a career out of it that will light your fire because you'll be doing what you love all of the time. So figure out what you're good at, figure out who you can solve a problem for by doing that, and then will they pay you to do that? And when you get those three in a row, that's a way to find a career that might light your fire.
I know that in any job or anything that you go after, if you're bidding for something, it doesn't matter. Before people buy your quality, what you're qualified in or what you're good at, they are going to buy you. So do you believe in you? Do you come across as not cocky, but confident? Do you come across as a person that's really true to who you are and the essence of you? Because if they buy that, then they're going to buy what you do. Don't go in with something, I'm this, I do that, because there's a detachment. Yeah, that may be very well that you're a great coder, but what are you like as a person? Because they're buying the person that does the coding.
Well, I think they're buying two things. They're buying the result. In other words, can you deliver the result you say you can? And if you are, then you do have the confidence to be that authentic person, that authentic self that we talked about earlier. So I think those are very important. And I also think that, I can't remember, I'm quoting somebody who's very well known in the marketing world, a big speaker, but he says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Yes.
And so if you're that poet and you bring to you're writing your music lyrics, this is what I love to do, people will buy why you do what you do. And for me, as a speaker, I charge quite a bit of money to corporations, but I had this in the film business. In the film business, a TV commercial might cost $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, and it takes you one day to make it.
Right.
It costs a lot to do that. And I'm talking way back in the days of film, not so much today. But if you're delivering value and solving a problem for somebody and you're authentic when you say this is what I can do and this is why I do it, and you're right, they are buying you because you have that credibility, then what you charge, if you're solving a bigger problem than what you charge, it shouldn't be an issue.
Right. The thing is, will you partake of what you're selling? Right, because people can. The thing is, because of social media today, and I think just a great deal to do with kind of the millennials are just not wanting to buy the BS anymore. Is people just want more authenticity. They want more realism. They want to feel that this is something that's more genuine. Because why should I spend my time on it? The generation before me has driven up the prices, has done this, has done that. We're picking up the pieces. We've chosen to live our lives in a different way. So therefore, if you're selling to me, you've got to sell to what I need and what I want, not what you think I need and I want, because people can always pick out the fake.
Absolutely. It's funny. I had a potential client say something to me. I can't remember exactly how they worded it, but if you go on social media, there's a ton of pictures of the guys standing there in front of the Lamborghini that they rented for the photo, and they're telling you how they're millionaires, and it's like if you're a millionaire,
6 figures in 1 hour, yes,
exactly. And if you're so wealthy, why are you flogging whatever you're flogging on the internet? But I had somebody say to me, well, I went to your website. I saw the pictures that you retired and you did sail around the world, and there are pictures from Fiji and Tonga and everywhere else. You're the real deal. And, I guess there's, so anyway, for me, my authenticity, I guess I've never had it questioned much because I just do what I do and I am who I am.
I so relate to that because my template of my site is 9 years old, right? And I've hired people in the past to kind of modernize it. And I've not liked what they've done, or they've hijacked the site, right? And it's just like, no, I've got to be able to work it. I've got to be able to see this and do that. No, you can't do that. No, you've got to do that. You've got to do this. And I said, I don't want to look like everybody else. I am not everybody else. I'm Sarah. People come to my site for Sarah shows, the people I choose to interview, and that needs to reflect that. And color is very evident in my site because I'm a very colorful person. And I've just resigned myself to the fact that, okay, my site is what it is, right? And if you're only looking for the new bells and whistles or the glitter of what's hot right now, you're certainly not going to want anything from my site because my site is about deep content, right? And if you're only really kind of buying what's in the window, you really are not going to get what the content is all about. So, I think sometimes just being true to who you are is enough. And if it's not enough for them, then you're not the right person for them.
Absolutely. I mentioned Tony Robbins, and one of the main programs that Tony does is called Date with Destiny, and it's you figure out who you want to be when you're grown up. And I happened to look at mine from 30 years ago, and you work out your current values and the values that the person you want to become would have to have. And then you actually develop a hierarchy of your values. What's more important to me? Authenticity, security, financial, adventure, whatever it is. You figure out all the things that you value about life, and you put them in an order. And once you go through that process, it's like you have a very clear roadmap for who you are. A while ago you mentioned something about business ethics. If you have this document in front of you that you've created, this is the things that are important to me. These are the values I want to embody, that I want to move towards. These are the values that I want to move away from, that maybe this is who I used to be, but I want to move away from that. And you have these documents in front of you, then it becomes very easy to steer yourself in the right direction, to you don't wonder whether you're doing something ethical or not that's against your values. You just look at the paper. Oh yeah, that's not the way I want to be. And so you very quickly have a really solid compass to guide you to the person you want to become.
Right. I was going to say that it is your compass, right? It will always steer you right, because it is integrally who you are. And you just get to a point where it is who you are. You can't go against your core. And I get propositioned all the time on this and that, etc. And it's like, thank you for thinking of me. No, because if my core says no, I'm not going to argue with my core. It doesn't need to justify or validate. It just says no. And if my mind is intrigued and the core goes, investigate, then I will investigate, right? But we need to listen to ourselves. Our inner selves are our own compass. And, don't just go off far to the north because somebody says there's a big deal over there, right? What's it going to cost you to get to that deal? What's going to cost you in the direction that you're going in right now? And is it worth it?
Absolutely. And it eliminates that situational ethics. Well, this is really not what I want to do, but it's a great opportunity. It makes it easy to say no to those
Yes.
things and say yes to the things that are aligned with who you are and who you want to become. And the more you do all of that, I mean, it's like when you go to the gym, the more you work out, two things happen. So if you bench press, for instance, two things happen. The more you bench press, the more weight you can press. But the other thing that happens is the actual motion of grabbing the bar, pushing it up, the motion doing it actually gets easier too.
Mm.
And that's where you reach, like all of us learning to drive a car, for instance. First time you get in a car, especially if you had learned in a stick shift car, it's like,
Yes.
what do you mean? I have to do the clutch, the stick, I have to look in the rearview mirror, all these things at the same time. It's impossible. And, a year later, you can sing and tune the radio
Yes.
and do everything else at the same time. And so you reach that level of unconscious competence where you don't have to think about doing the thing. And so that's where
Yeah.
that compass of your values comes
Yes.
so important. You just instinctively know if things are right for you, if they're wrong for you.
Mm.
And so the less time you spend making that decision and the more time you spend implementing it, the farther down the road you're going to get towards who the person is you want to become.
Right. Going back to your why and going back to your 10-year-old of like other people's opinion is their business, not yours. And if we understand our why, I mean, how many times do you get people pressurizing you saying, well, I don't know why you're not taking up this opportunity. You should do this. It does this, it does that, da, 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 da. And it's all very well, right? But if it's something that doesn't sit with your core, or, I don't need to do this to impress you or because everybody else is doing it, you may consider me an idiot. But if it doesn't sit right with me, then no. And if you can't respect that, then there's a question there, even of the ethics of what you want me to do, right? Because yes, sometimes we can push ourselves out of our comfort zone. We can try something new. I'm always about that. But listen to your core. Who are you doing it for? Why are you doing it? Is it because somebody's pressurized you or made you feel that you're less important if you don't do it? Or is it something because it's part of your why? I can really use this to really fulfilling what I really want to do in life.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, as I said, I don't spend 5 seconds of thinking about what other people's opinions are of
Mm.
that. I know immediately whether it's right for me or not.
Yeah.
But I think getting out of your comfort zone is really, really important. You
Hmm.
know, when I finished sailing around the world, I started doing a lot of talks about, people wanted to hear about our trip, and I wanted to give them more than just a travelogue of
Yeah.
pretty pictures. So I started coming up with the insights that we had learned along the way, and they're about human happiness and fulfillment. Some of the things we've talked about here of, not being swayed by others' opinions, knowing your self-worth comes from yourself, contribution, living in a state of gratitude.
Big one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but ultimately the most important thing for us that we learned while we were sailing was literally the quality of our life was directly proportional to how much uncertainty we were willing to live with.
Mm.
And so the more we were able to step outside of our comfort zone, the rewards just multiplied, tenfold every time we got further and further from our comfort zone. And
You
really
don't
the
go sailing around the world in a 300 square foot boat if you're looking for security.
know that well so way back when I did the Tony Robbins program I mentioned where I came up with my hierarchy of values. adventure was very high on my list and security was very low on my list.
Hmm.
So when I get those kind of opportunities that you're talking about, it's very easy for me to see, does this fall,
Yeah.
where does this, is it an adventure? Yes, I'm up for it. Is it all about security? No, it doesn't interest me. So
Right.
I really quickly have a way to judge those situations, because I know who I want to, I know the person I want to be,
Yeah.
and I know the values that person would have to be that person. And I'm not there, but I strive to get closer to it every day.
Yeah. The thing is, what does it cost you to be you? And who does it cost? Right. And that's the cost is there's always something that maybe you have to give up, or there's something that you have to say no to. And I've learned that um, in order for me to really be me and do what I do, I have to let obviously the naysayers go, or the other people saying you're doing it wrong, or the people saying you've got to do it this way or that way, but also that I'm not going to get rich doing this. This is something that I'm doing for the enrichment or the abundance, and that's where the true abundance lies for me. So I think it's knowing, is that enough? Is that what you're willing to, the cost of what you're doing? And there's always a cost to what you're doing. And I think you've got to be able to live with it happily, or don't do it at all.
Right. I guess what I try and do is I try and ask myself more empowering questions. So if I were in your the spot you just outlined, you said you're not going to get rich doing it. If you wanted to get rich, I would ask myself, how can I do what I do and make
Yes,
more money doing it? And
that's where I need somebody else's hat.
well, maybe so. So here, let me suggest an avenue for you. You know, our brain is designed to answer questions,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll answer whatever question we ask of it. So if I ask my brain, why does nobody love me? Why do I fail at everything I try? Why do I always procrastinate? Why can't I succeed in this? Why didn't I get a raise? My brain is going to come up with an answer for every one of those things. It may
Yes,
not be a factual answer, but my brain is going to come up with a reason. Well, you
right.
didn't get a raise because you're no good, because Bill's
Mm-hmm.
better than you, whatever. It's going to come up with some reason. And if I ask my brain a different question, like, how can I do my podcast and make money? My brain will start to come up with answers for that question. So I always work at asking empowering questions. There's a series of problem solving questions. So if I'm facing a problem, I ask myself, what's good about this problem, or what could be good about
Mm-hmm.
it? What am I no longer willing to do? What am I willing to do? How can I solve this problem and enjoy the process? And so I ask those empowering questions, and my brain will come up with empowering answers. So if I say just the opposite of that earlier list, why does everybody love me? Why do I always succeed at what I try? How do I always get promoted? How do I always get a raise in my jobs? My brain is going to come up with those answers too.
Right.
And
Because that's what you're channeling. Yeah.
one set of answers is, the word you used was frequency, but
Mm-hmm.
one set of answers is going to give you access to your resources. So if I say, why am I successful? Just by answering that question, my brain's going to say, well, you're successful because you learned how to do this, and because you succeeded at that, and you learned this, and your mom was good to you, and your wife loves you. All of those empowering answers are going to allow me to be more creative, more flexible, more resilient, more charismatic, more whatever. And those are all states that will lead to my success.
Mm-hmm. I think we've also got to be investigative because, we'll find certain channels, people are doing X, Y, and Z, and that's the way it's got to be done. Well, that doesn't work for you. So therefore, explore other ways that you can do it, right? And that maybe hasn't been done. Or other people might be starting to do that hasn't been mainstream yet. So it's don't just accept the door in your face, right?
Yep.
There's other doors, or there's other windows, or even peepholes out there that we've got to be, all right, it's not that avenue. I've got to try another one.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's kind of what you said earlier about failure. It's
Mm,
only failure if you don't get back up again. So if
exactly.
this avenue is got a detour on it and you find another avenue. Yeah.
People look at the word happiness and think that we have happy moments in our lives, but it's unreasonable to think that we could be happy all the time. And again, happiness has different levels to it, right? You can be just as happy in a quiet meditation of peace as you can be in achieving something big in the moment, right? So it's look at happiness and what does that happiness mean to you, and understand that it's many notes. We're inclined to look at things as just one note. I will be popular in this and that when I reach that one note. There's so many different notes to the tune, but the whole tune could be happiness, just different notes leading up to a crescendo of it.
Well, certainly you want to be happy when you accomplish a certain goal,
Yeah.
like you alluded to there. I'll be happy when.
Yeah.
And yes, you do want to be happy when whatever that is thing happens. But in fact, and this is science has proved this, there's a whole body of knowledge called positive psychology, and they've studied happiness. And my journey to that is that when I started speaking on happiness, I started speaking, doing, as I said, these slide presentations of my sailing version, and I wanted to give people more than just pretty pictures.
Yeah.
And so I started including these ideas of fulfillment and happiness and all of that. And often people would come up to me afterwards and say, do you do coaching, or can you help me with this? And I didn't want to be a coach, but I always offered to help. And after I was doing that a while, I sort of had a little bit of imposter syndrome. I said, well, I don't have any training in this. I'm not a psychologist. I haven't gone through any kind of program. These are just things that I observed and I spent a lot of time thinking about.
Life experience.
Maybe
yeah.
I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But so then I went and actually did the research, and I found out that there's this entire body of knowledge called positive psychology. And literally all the 10 or 12 things that I teach are paralleled exactly in what they teach and what they've studied in this field of positive psychology. And one of the things they found is that about 50% of your level of happiness is baked into your DNA. And they've done studies with twins, identical twins, and found out certain things. And I'm one of the people I know who happen to have gotten the lucky gene there, that I'm a happy person, and I'm happy most of the time, and I know why, and I've been able to quantify why I am the way I am and share it with others. But that's 50% of your happiness.
Yeah.
10% is usually the circumstances of your life, your socioeconomic level, your relationships, your job, your finances. So that's 10%. And then the other 40% is all this other stuff. And I teach skills and strategies to incorporate those into your life. But you definitely can make yourself very, very much happier. And it actually starts with the decision to be happy.
Yes.
And when you are happy, you actually access, and again, this is all scientifically proven, when you're a happy person, you access your creativity and all those other resilience and things I talked about, and therefore you are more successful. So if you said, I'm going to be happy when I reach X dollars in my bank account, or I get the new car, or the wife, or the partner, or the house, or whatever, you'll have better luck getting those things. Because you're a happy person, you're going to access more resourceful states that will help you achieve those things.
Yeah.
Deciding to be happy actually comes first.
Yes.
And then you do the things that make you happy.
There's the Emoto experiment of the water experiment. I'm sure you've heard about it, the 3 glasses of water. Where in one room the water was completely ignored, the other one was fed negativity, and the other one was fed positivity. The ignored one just stayed as it was. The one that was fed negativity went dark, almost black, and the other one turned into crystal. And that crystallization could be actually measured. I had Yashiyuko, his assistant, because the Emoto died, and he's continued the study on. And we are water. 70% of our body is water. So what we seed and what we nurture and what we water is what will grow. So if we're going to grow and plant the seeds of misery or doubt, or this can never happen or that can never happen, that's going to be what will grow. So we need to really make sure that we do put positive vibes in there, because that keeps the water in our body, in our brain, plump and juicy and healthy, because most disease comes about from dis-ease, right? Being unhappy, that breaks the body down and then becomes disease because of it. So happiness is something we really need to seed, water, and nurture in order to stay productive and creative and well.
Absolutely. Jim Rohn, a very famous speaker, said, "Stand guard at the door of your mind."
Mm,
And I have a saying, think about what you think about.
mm.
And if you think about positive things, then you have access to all those positive emotions that then make you more uh, creative and competent. And so you do achieve more when you are that way, without a doubt.
Mm.
So the
You know, I
more you
say
think,
about feel your thoughts, because when you feel them, you really, and you know, the thing is that our emotions are all here for indication. I'm mad, sad, glad. It's an indication of where you're at right now, a reaction to something. You know, acknowledge it, spend it, but don't become emotional about your emotions. But when you actually have a feeling of love, of joy, and everything else, and you feel those thoughts now are going to serve you in a more productive way, right? And because we can just think our thoughts, but that is coming very much by just data. But when we feel them, there is that loving emotion around them. And then the thoughts that we have and the thoughts that we need to know at that moment.
very much so. I don't know if you're familiar with NLP,
Yes.
neuro linguistic programming, but it identifies that of the spectrum of people, we all have a prime modality
Mm,
where we learn and how we represent things to ourselves. You're obviously a very kinesthetic person,
mm-hmm.
feeling, so you said feel your emotions. If somebody were very visual, they would use
Yes.
visualization to do it,
Yes.
or the
I
other one is
see it or I
auditory.
hear it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we part of what I do in this framework that I teach of happiness, the last part of it is dream harvesting, figuring out your dreams and then turning them into goals and an action plan. And one of the steps is to visualize after you've accomplished that dream. So close your eyes, imagine you've accomplished that dream, and then I take people through all three steps because we all have all of them. So I say,
Mm-hmm.
what does it look like when you've accomplished that dream? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And so you make all of that very sensory real to yourself. And when you do that, one of them, like I say, when I do it with people, I have them do all three: visual, auditory, and the feeling, the kinesthetic. Everybody's going to have one of them that is better for
Right.
them,
Yeah.
but we all have all of them. And when
Yes.
you do all of them, you've accessed a part of your brain. They can see it chemically on brain
Mm-hmm.
scans. You access a part of your brain that then again helps you achieve states that make it more likely that you'll make your dream come true.
Right. I'm a True Colors coach, the Myers and Biggs program, True Colors, of the 4 key personality traits. And if we take into consideration our personality trait, it's how we receive and how we perceive information, right? And so when we actually understand what we are, then we understand that's what I'm getting. That's the essence of what I'm getting in the conversation, because that's how I see it. And this is how I'm going to articulate it back. But if we learn to actually look at the other 3 personality traits and identify them, they will understand that that person is coming at it from that perspective, that point of view, right? I'm going to articulate it this way. They're going to articulate it that way. We're probably saying the same thing. How do we adjust our perception so we can understand each other? Right. So it's very important that we actually do know how our mind or how we work, because the better we understand ourselves, the more we can articulate who we are and also invite other dialogues from other perceptions and in a way that is more open and cohesive.
Absolutely. I had an experience long ago when I was editing a film and I was working with the art director and the copywriter from the ad agency, and we were editing a TV commercial, and we were in a studio that, it cost $600 an hour to edit.
Mhm.
And we were at loggerheads because we all had different visions for how this next part of the commercial was going to be. And they were my client, but I'm the director, so I have to be, give them the best of my input that I can. And we were kind of at loggerheads, and it was getting a little tense in the room.
Yeah.
And the guy, the editor running the machines, didn't know who to listen to, and we were all kind of at this difficult point. And I just and I'm visual as a cinematographer. You
Yeah.
can imagine I would be pretty visual. And I kept describing what we would see on the screen for this next part of the edit. And the other guys just weren't seeing my vision. And finally, I took a step back and I said, the copywriter is probably auditory. He's into
Yeah.
the sound of the words. He's a writer, and the words make a difference to him. So I described exactly the same edit, but instead of using what we see, I
Yes.
said, so we hear the sound of the narrator do this, and then the car door slam. We hear the sound of the car door slam, and I described all of the auditory sounds.
Exactly.
It was exactly what I had been saying for 10 minutes.
Yes.
And he turned to me and he said, yeah, that sounds perfect. And he had been
Exactly.
arguing against it for
Right.
10
You're
minutes.
saying the same thing, but just from a different perspective, right? That's why we
Exactly.
have
And
to adjust the language.
then
Yeah.
the art director still didn't get it. The copywriter turned to the art director and he said it a different way.
Right.
And the art director went, yeah, that sounds fine. And we all went ahead with the program. But we were all saying the same thing, but we were using
Exactly.
different language.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a very valuable point if you can learn how you learn.
Yes.
And if you have kids, your kids learn a different way. And so you might have to figure out for your children, instead of saying, do you see what I mean? You might say, does that sound like it makes sense to you?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
How do you
Yeah.
feel about that?
Yeah.
And every one of us has a different way that will respond.
It becomes quite a liberation, because when I actually did first do the true colors before I started doing it, it was, now I understand why my family doesn't hear me. Right, because I'm speaking from that kinesthetic. I'm very much an air sign as well, and it's they're coming at it from a very much the grounded, the building blocks, the safety and the security, and I'm out there flapping in the wind, and they just think I'm being unsafe. Right, so it's I had to kind of address. I put them through the program, and it was like, oh, it kind of became quite a revelation for them as well. But it then became a better bridge gap of understanding each other, that we might not quite comprehend from where we're coming from, but we understand that we're probably saying the same thing, but from a different point of view, and just to be more attentive of how we communicate.
Absolutely. And of course, all of our relationships come down to our communications.
Yes.
And, as human beings, our relationships, I mean, the quality of our lives is certainly a big part of our happiness, but a whole lot of the quality of our lives comes down to our relationships. And communication is so important in that. I mean, for my wife and I being married 40 years and spending a bunch of those years on a sailboat, which is,
Yes, could drive each other
24/7.
mad.
Yeah. Well, we never did. It surprised me when I started doing talks about our sailing that almost every time the second or third question would be, how did the two of you get along in such a
Right.
small space?
Yes.
And I have a PDF actually on my website that people can download that is the relationship things that work for us. I'm not a relationship coach, but we've identified what worked for us, how we do that. And communication is such an important part of that.
First and foremost, before you communicate with everyone else, you've got to communicate with yourself. Right? The dialogue with self is going to be very much the dialogue you're going to have with others. So if you want positivity, if you want happiness, speak happy to self.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the same thing. We're saying it in many different ways. Think about what you think about.
Yeah.
Think about empowering questions. All those things are saying the same thing. Put positivity in, and the states, the emotional states that it generates allow you to put positivity and success out.
Yes. Yes. Again, what you feed is what will grow. So, it really comes down to that choice. Yeah, everything is a choice in life. Even abstaining from a choice is a choice. And, you can look at it. Do I want to feed the past? That's a heavy weight, or past mistakes and beat myself up about it, or do I want to feed the possibilities of tomorrow and seed those possibilities, nurture and water them and let them grow, believe in them? But it has to come from your why. Why do you want them to grow? Who do they serve? How is this going to make you feel? Is it going to make you feel happy? Is it going to make you feel fulfilled? Is it a meaningful purpose? Because ultimately, that's what we're all looking for, isn't it? It doesn't matter what we do, we're all looking for that.
Yeah, well, very much a part of happiness is that happiness only exists in the present moment. You cannot store it up for use tomorrow.
Right?
You can't apply it to yesterday. So if you want to be happy, you have to be present as all the time.
Yes.
If you want to be happy, you have to be present.
Yeah.
And so that's so those moments of happiness only exist in the present. And there's two things that you cannot do if you're present. You can't be worrying about the past and
Mm.
beating yourself up over the past, and you can't be worrying about the future.
No, the gift of the present is in the now.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that, that's why I say there's different levels of it, of happiness, is that you can have kind of a heightened happiness at this moment, but that doesn't mean the next moment you're going to be unhappy. It's just kind of a different level of that and of happiness, that because we can't be living on a high all the time. Right? Because then it kind of, you look at that happiness as a high, and people are looking for the euphoria. And we all have those moments of, oh, this feels wonderful. I'm so happy right now. But we can't live up there because it just is not practical to live up there all the time. Is bring it down to a point where you store it in your heart and soul. That really makes me feel good. How do I keep that happiness level in me that I can reach those highs again, or I can live on a sustainability of happiness that I can bring to every part of my life and every moment?
Very much so. That's exactly what I teach. I mean, I describe the happiness that I teach. It's not the rainbows and
Yeah,
unicorns, which might be that moment of
yeah,
euphoria. That
yeah.
might be the rainbows and unicorns. But the other part of happiness, and for me, is it's just this deep, deep contentment with life.
Hmm.
I spend almost all of my 20 my waking hours, my predominant emotional state is gratitude. I'm
Hmm.
grateful that I'm here with you right now.
Hmm.
I'm grateful for what's going on in my life right this moment.
Right,
I'm not focused on what I'm going to do 15 minutes from now.
right.
I'm totally here present with you. And gratitude is the predominant emotional state of my life. And I spend almost no time worrying. I spend almost no time overthinking or over processing things or regretting things in the past. And so
It's so unproductive.
it is. So I'm
Yeah,
not always at that euphoria
right.
level, but 24/7, I'm only down a little ways
Yeah.
from it. I'm with this really deep, deep contentment with life. And that's what I teach people how to be.
So kind of a warm glow of satisfaction, isn't it?
Exactly.
When you've had a good day where you've spent your joy in helping someone else. And the thing is, we don't, I've said being of service to someone else or doing something for someone else is the greatest gift you can give yourself. But it doesn't mean you always know the results of what you've done for someone else. And it doesn't mean that that person now owes you. No, the actual gift to you is in the giving to others, making a difference in their lives, making them smile, helping them out with something, a total change of perspective. It doesn't matter what it is you've done, but if it's had a positive impact on any level, there is that gift back to you.
Definitely. We know when you throw a stone in the water and
Mm,
the ripples go
yeah.
out. And I like to think that we're all the stone and
Mm,
we're all the ripple.
yes.
And for me, my mentor Tony Robbins was the stone, and the ripples that the ripples that he created affected my life. When we sailed into Indonesia, as we sailed around the world, we were with a lot of third world countries and a lot of poor
Mm,
people, and we always carried kind of school supplies for the kids and sewing material and needles and threads for the women, and the men tools or batteries or fish hooks and things like that. And we always distributed that, but it was always kind of a band-aid on what we
right.
were, the next year they needed all those same things again. And we sailed into Indonesia, and I was sort of pondering that idea of contribution and being the ripple and the stone. And we met this young woman on the beach in Indonesia, and she offered to be our guide because she wanted to practice her English.
Hmm.
And we spent a few days with her, and she was so bright and so personable. If she'd been in the US, she'd been on a full ride scholarship to
Mm,
Harvard. Luckily, her parents actually only made $200 a month,
Wow.
but luckily she had gotten into a teaching college and she was studying to be a teacher and studying to teach English. And we were so inspired by her, and we knew there must be so many other young women like her. And in the third world, helping women is
Mm,
really the most bang for your buck
yes.
you can do.
Yes.
And in a matter of 1 week, we were in this town of Kupang, Indonesia, a pretty medium-sized city, had a college and everything. In a matter of 1 week, we put together a scholarship program, and we met with the president of the university, and he agreed to waive all the admissions and red tape requirements for anybody we would sponsor. And we met with the principals of headmasters of some of the high schools, and we set up like criteria based on academic achievement and financial need. And we set up this scholarship, and we knew sailors like us who were just
Yeah.
itinerant sailors
Mm,
going through. They're going to be in this town for a week, and then they're going to go on to some other place. But we knew they would all feel like we did, that wanting to contribute. And so within a matter of a week, we set up a scholarship program, and it's been going for 13 years
wow.
now, and we've put 29 kids through college.
Excellent. You see, there's that difference. You see, I mean, you saw something that was a need. You had no idea how it was going to be, how big it was going to be. It was just like, this is what's needed right now. Let's do it. It will be what it's be, and look at how many people it served. I've interviewed other people who have done that in the powering of the women in third world countries. Number one, they don't have to marry for economics. Right? They can stand on their own. They can get the education. They can start their own businesses. They can provide for their own families. It gives them dignity. It gives them liberation. It gives them a chance at life. And that actually then has the ripple effect, not only on their children, but on their communities and on life in general. So the more we do invest in the women, it actually takes a great deal of the burden off the men, and it brings about that equality. So good for you for doing that. And there are a few people out there doing that, and it's always kudos, because people look at that part of the world and think, well, I'm North America, it doesn't affect me. Whatever hurts there is going to hurt you in some form or other, some form of ripple. So whoever we can empower along the way and give those opportunities to is only going to benefit all of us somewhere down the road.
Absolutely. One of my favorite organizations is a charity called Kiva, Kiva.org. And you go to their website and you read the stories of these people looking for microloans all over the world.
Mm.
And something as simple as buying a woman a sewing machine. I don't
Yeah,
know, sewing machines cost what, $300 maybe? That she would never in her life have
no,
$300 all at one time. And you can donate as little as $25, and it'll say, here's this person. It describes her life, where she is, and she's trying to buy a sewing machine. And you get a bunch of people that each kick in $25. She buys the sewing machine. It changes her entire life, her family, her children's and her
yes,
grandchildren's life,
yes,
because now she has a business where she can generate income, whereas before she would never at one point in
right.
time have the wherewithal to buy a sewing machine. And those loans are paid back at a high, the default number on those loans is like zero. You go to your local bank, they have a lot of defaulted
Yeah,
loans. In the third world, these people that are getting these Kiva loans, the defaults are almost zero, because the entire community is vested
yes,
in seeing her succeed.
yes.
And so she succeeds, and then the next round, the money goes to somebody
Mm.
else. So if people are interested in a really wonderful way to learn about the world, learn about a third world country, and help somebody and make a huge difference, bigger than it's the cost of a couple of Starbucks, will change 20, 30 people's lives. Go to kiva.org, Kiva.org.
Yeah, and the other thing I say when it comes to gift buying, um, what very often give my kids is a donation to something on behalf of them. That's their gift. A wheelchair, or we had severe flooding here in BC, and literally homes and livelihoods and everything stopped. So I gifted towards that in the name of my children. And, it's good to encourage your kids. X amount of their pocket money goes away into that. When they've got enough, they're going to put it into something that they know they're supporting someone else that doesn't have the same things they do. You can never start that too early.
Absolutely. That's a great idea.
Give a gift of a gift. It's a gift that keeps on giving, right? Well, you're a gift that keeps on giving. And I know that you're in the process of writing a book.
I am. I've been doing this workshop on happiness for a while, and I'm about halfway done with the book. I don't know. The working title at this point is "Make Yourself Happier in 30 Days" or "30 Days to a Happier You," something like that. But it's a framework for how to make yourself happy, step by step. Do these few things, and then a while later you do more things, and people can radically change the quality of their lives by this process.
Change the thought, right? You know, say positive thinking equals positive living. If you've changed the thoughts, change the perception, change your view into possibilities, you know, the happiness starts growing within you, right?
Absolutely. So I hope the book will be ready in another 2 or 3 months. I just halfway, two-thirds of the way through the first draft, and there's a workbook that I use in my speeches, and that's just been finished. So the book is in the works now. And but there's, as I said, there's some PDFs people can get from my website. They can download things on relationships or finances, things like that, and that's all on the FAQ, the frequently asked questions page of my website.
And your website is?
robdubin.com.
Can you spell it for the people who are just listening?
Yes, it's robdubin.com. And go to the frequently asked questions page. There's a little form to fill out, and then they'll get a list of how to download the PDFs.
And of course, you're on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And you've also got ventanasvoyage.com as well. Is that all about your journey?
Yeah, that's a bit about our sailing trip around the world. If people want a little travelogue experience, that's there. And that's ventanasvoyage.com, no apostrophe. The name of our boat was Ventana, which means window in Spanish, because she was our window to see the world.
Right. And see the world you did. And, you know, I traveled a great deal before I came to Canada. So, you know, did several countries, and I wanted to do it young, BC, before children, because I know once I have children, it's harder to do. And what I learned about myself, you know, through the eyes of other people, through the different cultures, through the, you know, just the wonderful ways of living, it was just truly extraordinary. It really opened me up in so many ways. And I think that's probably one of North America's big problems, or anywhere else where people don't travel. They're living in a very small parameter of their world, and it becomes very infested. And I think, you know, whether you are traveling through Zoom, if you can't do it physically, be inquisitive of what's going on in another part of the world. Even the people of different culture in your neighborhood, you know, start speaking to them about the culture of what they've left behind, or their traditions, or this and that, because it broadens your mind, broadens your senses, broadens your appreciation and gratitude for one another. And please, that we take the blinkers off. Just be willing to explore. We are exploratory creatures. Be willing to explore, because that is really where the joy of life comes from.
Absolutely. Travel just broadens you in so many ways.
Yes. Yeah. Whether it's traveling around the people in your neighborhood, or whether it's actually going somewhere when COVID is over, is just getting out there and exploring. And, you know, don't do the old touristic things. Go in there and really see the neighborhoods, the people. And along the way, just drop a few seeds of opportunities for people along the way, right? Because you never know how it's going to grow. You may never see it, but it will have an impact.
Be the ripple and be the stone.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all capable of doing it. Thank you so much for sharing here. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Wonderful. So, folks, it's Rob Dubin. I'm going to get that L out of there. Dubin, DUBIN.com. And we all could touch it with a touch of happiness. I know this last couple of years, a lot of people have had to pivot. Careers have changed, perspectives have changed, everything has changed. And you just might think, well, where can I find my happiness to know which direction I'm going in? Tap into the experience of a lifetime, of all that he's gone through, because he's got it there for you, and he can help you find your inner happiness that then you will bring to every other thing that you do in your life. So until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. Please tune in to our selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows and you will see all the other genres that we have from you. Every week on Tuesday, we bring you new shows from illuminating people. If you know someone that should be interviewed, please contact us at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com. Now stay tuned for your next show.